Now that we've seen the theory behind pirate metrics, let's apply them. We'll want to think of at least one metric in each of the 5 buckets: acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. It's worth doing this for whatever products you are working on. But for this video, let's take the example of Pinterest. It's a classic example of a product that would use all 5 buckets. And because it's a public company, a lot of the data will be published regularly. Let's start with acquisition. First, we'll need to understand how people might stumble upon Pinterest in the first place. The acquisition channels include Google image search, link sharing through messaging apps, reposts from other social media platforms like Facebook or Reddit, or simply ads. In the acquisition stage, we just care about bringing eyeballs to Pinterest, not about converting them. That comes later stage. So a metric like CPM, or cost per milla, would be a good way to measure if ads are bringing in people cheaply. In terms of organic traffic, which just comes down to search engine and social media sites, we'd simply want to measure the volume of people coming in that way. That traffic is known somewhat confusingly as referral traffic, since those sites are referring users to us. Moving on to activation, we want to measure how many of these new visitors actually sign up for accounts. That conversion rate is a simple percentage. New signups divided by new visitors. It's helpful to slice and dice this a bit though, to figure out which funnels are most effective at bringing new users in. Maybe we'd compare the sign up percentage on the homepage to that of a post page or an influencer's profile page. Or we could compare it across different types of post pages: recipes, fashion, home decor, etc. For retention, there's a lot of good metrics. The most fundamental is monthly active users. Pinterest actually publishes this metric quarterly during their earnings reports. Taking a look at this report, you'll see that Pinterest applies some extra analysis on top of raw MAU numbers. For one, there's a segmentation by geography, US versus the rest of the world. There's also year-over-year growth, both overall and broken down by geography. Geography is a great way to segment monthly active users, since there's users in different countries will often behave very differently in other pirate metric phases. We see a very good example of this in just a minute. Anyway, there's a couple of things to notice here besides numbers themselves. First, notice what's missing. They don't mention quarter over quarter or QOQ growth rates. That's probably to sidestep any seasonal swings in Pinterest usage and encourage longer-term product thinking. Second, notice that light gray text at the bottom of this slide. It says, we define monthly active users as an authenticated Pinterest user who visits our website, opens our mobile application, or interacts with Pinterest through one of our browsers or site extensions, such as the Save button, at least once in a 30-day period, ending on the date of measurement. This is a lot of detail about who counts as a monthly active users, but it's really important. By sharply defining a metric, you can make it easier for anyone in the organization to calculate it in the same way. Anyway, back to retention metrics. MAUs are clearly Pinterest's North Star retention metric, but other useful ones include D1, D7, and D30 retention rates, monthly or yearly churn rates, and stickiness. Moving on to revenue metrics, Pinterest's quarterly reports show a very important metric in this category: the average revenue per user, or ARPU. Like before, you see the year-over-year trends and you see the split across the US and the rest of the world. This is where geography split really becomes useful, because US users pull in over 10 times as much revenue as international users, at least in this time period. If you look closely, you'll see a possible reason why Pinterest doesn't calculate quarter-over-quarter changes. The Q4 revenue is a lot higher than other quarters, which may be due to Pinterest users doing a lot more holiday shopping during this time period. That's seasonality right there. Finally, look at referral. We'd want to measure both upstream and downstream metrics. Looking upstream, we'd want to know if Pinterest users like the product enough to tell their friends. For that, we'd measure their NPS. We slice and dice this by user categories such as demographics and geography to see which users like us more or less. Downstream, we want to measure how much Pinterest users spread the word to their friends. The main way this happens is by sending links to specific posts, so we'd want to measure how many people click on those links. We could be a bit more sophisticated and measure how many of those visitors actually stay on the site and visit other pages versus bounce after seeing that post. At this point, we're kind of coming full circle to acquisition metrics. So there you have it. We've defined a few example metrics for each of the 5 buckets: acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. Try this method out for your own products, and it'll help make sure you've covered your whole funnel.